Well, we still got our tools all set out here because we just finished up our second corner here for ball joint and control arm bushings. All right, now that we got the back upper ball joints done and the upper control arm bushings done, they're not easy, believe me. They're going to that other control arm bushing style is not that easy. The biggest problem you're gonna have is getting them back in. Like I've showed y'all before, it's not undoable. I mean, I did both of those. It just takes some finagling, but they're not very fun to do. Now the whole thing on this started out buying control arm bushings, ball joints and everything because I'm getting a little bit of vibration, I believe, in this corner up here, driver's side front, whenever I hit a certain speed. So that could be a lot of things: unbalanced wheels, ball joints, control arm bushings, things like that. I was also getting kind of a clunk noise. Clunk, not really a clunk. I don't really know what type of sound. It's not really a clunk, but it sounds like a bushing or something's not holding like it should have. So I actually think my sway bar bushings needed to be replaced. So whenever I was looking at all of this, I could buy a kit for the sway bar bushings, I could buy kits for the control arms, or I could buy a kit that just was everything. So I ended up with just going with the everything. Whenever I got it here, I thought, oh, that's a good idea. Let me just go ahead and replace all the control arm bushings too while I'm at it. Well, we've seen how those have gone now. So up front here, what I think I'm gonna do is go ahead and jack this up. So I'm gonna look at the ball joints, control arm bushings whenever I'm up under here. If they seem fine, I'm just gonna leave them until I do need to get in here and do something, and then I'll look at replacing them because then I'll already be into it. No point in tearing it apart if it's working fine. I'm just trying to find that vibration that's over here and fix those bushings on the sway bar. So without even starting on the front suspension, I just jacked up the front, was checking the ball joints just by trying to wiggle the wheels back and forth. And I noticed they seem to wiggle a little bit more than they should, all being connected up. So it looks like our little pitman arm there, the little bushing or joint there is a little bit loose, so I may need to order another pitman arm to go ahead and put in this. That could be what's causing my little vibration that I'm feeling at higher speeds. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and put some more grease in that fitting, hopefully help it out a little bit while I wait for that other piece to come in. All right, looks like with the front, I'm going to need ball joint split there, so we're gonna go ahead and replace it anyway. It's just as easy to replace it since I have it as it is to replace the boot on it. So I'll just go ahead and replace it, similar to the back. Our control arm bushings up here actually look really good, so I am not gonna touch them because those were a pain in the back there and I don't want to deal with them up here until I need to. Oh yeah, and I think I actually do have the correct CV shaft there, so I may go ahead and break this open, get all of that loose, and replace that while I'm at it. our new CV shaft here. So we already greased up this end of the CV shaft. We're gonna end up trying to basically slide it between the control arm there that way, and then slip it in the back side, and then we'll use our bolt and lock washer in order to secure it in place. Well, it's the third battery in my camera, so I'm definitely recording a lot more this time, which just means my editing is going to take even longer. But also means less likely to miss something that y'all want to see. All right, so we got all of the stuff back on the passenger front. Now time for the driver's side. All right, driver's side, a little bit more dusty, but we're definitely gonna replace that ball joint. That might be bad there too. So, looks like maybe pitman arm replacement. These little tie rod ends to the steering rack, possibly replacing those, or just possibly this end here if I'm able to actually just replace the end. Oh, and also I found out my 3/8 torque wrench here is not working right. I get a click at 30, turn it up 5 more foot-pounds, and it just won't click. Then you turn it up to 40 something and it'll click. So torque wrench is dead. That may explain why a few of those nuts got stripped out. So we'll just have to get something better. Well, we got our sway bar out. Yes, that's my trash can. Now, whenever I was looking at the instructions on how to take the sway bar out, this wasn't on there. So I guess maybe this is an older style and the newer style just has a bolt that runs all the way through. That's the same size, because this is smaller than this. But then this doesn't come out of there. I guess this end's threaded. So anyway, I ended up having to take the little short arms of the sway bar off as well. I was probably going to do that anyway, but the first thing I wanted to replace was going to be our little bushings that go along this point. And the little bushing kit thing that I got, it comes with 4 of these with the inserts, everything, you know. So those are for the short arm part of the sway bar. And then these are what go up against the frame in that mount and clamp up against there. So whenever I originally looked at these, when I first got them, I thought this was one piece and I was going to have to try to thread this all the way down and get it in place. But it is actually split there just enough. So the old ones were split up top here, and that honestly is what I thought might be making the sound that I was getting if I hit a bump too hard. It seemed like it was kind of squished out in that center spot there. So this has that slit along the side. So I think those will actually do a little bit better. Now it may be a little bit rougher, tighter handling though, which would be good. I thought I was going to have a lot of issue with trying to get these on, because as you can see, it has to squeeze in and then it sits down in there like that, because the original is a piece of rubber like this. But as you can tell, I went ahead and got one pushed in here, so it's not as hard as I thought it was. So I'm going to go ahead and do this end, so let me show you how I ended up getting that out and then pushing the new one in. Well, they're quite dirty, but I love these little things. This was just recently that I ended up getting them, but they help protect your steel as you're working with it and everything, or your whatever, like this tubing, it won't crush it along those points. You can put it in here, tighten it down, and hold it in place as you work on it, so definitely recommend some of those. Yes, to some of y'all, these are going to be like a duh thing, but to others, y'all may not know, these are like really hard rubber, polymer or something. And so it can clamp around things without scarring up your tubing or whatever you're working on. So you can kind of tell here, this rubber is just kind of falling apart, cracking and everything. So it is very old. So I'm definitely replacing all of these. I go ahead and put this up in the vise, and then I use just a little kind of razor blade, and I'm going to run this on the inside and cut it. It doesn't necessarily have to go all the way through, but you'll get it pretty deep in that rubber, and then you can use a screwdriver and it just busts it loose, cracks along that line, and then you just kind of pry it out. So I'm going to do that, set y'all down, get that one out so we can set it up to put the other one in. I went ahead and pre-lubed that with that same stuff that came in the kit. Now I'm going to lube up the bushing as well, and then I'll show y'all how I set this up to push it in there. Alright, so we have a 3/4 inch bolt. These are actually the old bolts that I replaced out of one of the control arms. I have a big old thick grade 8 washer. Then we're going to go ahead and put the bushing on there. That'll go up against that little rod there, and then we're going to stack some washers behind it and a nut, and we just tighten it together and it works. I don't have a press, so this is the best I can do. And there we go, it's in. Now of course there's some extra sticking out there, so I'll go ahead and spread that all the way around. Whew. Well, reinstalling the sway bar definitely helps if you go ahead and jack up the front there. Gives you a little bit more droop, and the bolts up top there will line up a little bit better. Now I need to go ahead and torque all the bolts, and we should be good. Alrighty, since I didn't show a whole lot of installing that because there's just not enough room under there with the amount of movement, we'll just crawl under here and show you. I did go back and put extra grease on these. We have our new bushings in here, new bushings in there, new bushings up there. Same on the other side. And then also just some extra grease on it. Now, even with jacking it up in the air, it was kind of a pain. So I ended up figuring out I needed to back these out just a little bit. And then basically, well, you might even be able to tell there's some footprints on my sway bar because I ended up having to scoot further back and then put my feet up here and push while somebody lined up the bolts up here because they did not want to line up very well. All of this was further back, and as it went up it came close, but it still just was about ½ an inch or so off. But everything's so tight now with the new bushings that it didn't want to play too much. So I guess we'll see how this sway bar does now with these types of bushings. People say these are a little bit harder than those rubber original ones, but that may help a little bit with tightening up the suspension and everything. But I guess we'll just have to see over time as I drive it. I'll let y'all know. If I really can't tell the difference driving it over time, I probably won't tell y'all because I'll probably forget. I don't know, we'll see.